Audiobook presents On the Happy Life by Lucius Annaeus Seneca. Dive into the timeless wisdom of Seneca's On the Happy Life. In a world obsessed with fleeting desires, let this profound and practical guide show you the path to enduring tranquility. Prepare to challenge your deepest beliefs about success and satisfaction. As one of history's greatest Stoic philosophers reveals the secret, true happiness is not found in having everything, but in desiring nothing. This is your essential roadmap to freedom, resilience, and genuine joy. Continue listening and discover the power of living well. The true happiness does not consist in having everything, but in desiring nothing. Chapter 1. The Common Opinion and the Correct Path. All men, Brother Gallio, wish to live happily, but when they go to discover what makes life happy, they fumble about. And it is not easy to attain happiness in life, since one moves farther away from it the more eagerly one seeks it, if one has mistaken the path. If the path leads in the opposite direction, the very speed increases the distance. We must first determine then what we crave. Then we must consider how we can advance toward it most quickly. And we shall see along the way, provided it is the right one, how much progress is made each day, and how much closer we get to that which a natural desire impels us toward. As long as we wander here and there, following no other guide than rumors and discordant clamors that call us toward different places, our short life will be consumed in errors, even if we work day and night to improve our spirit. We must decide then where we are headed and by what means. And we must do this not without the help of some expert person who has explored the path we are taking. For here the situation is not the same as in other journeys. In those there is some path, and the inhabitants one asks do not allow one to stray. But here, the most frequented and most famous road is the one that most deceives. Nothing matters more, therefore, than not to follow, like sheep, the flock of those who precede us, going not where we ought to go, but where people go. And certainly, nothing envelops us in greater evils than conforming to rumor, persuaded that the best course is that admitted by the assent of many, to hold numerous examples as good and not to live rationally, but by imitation. Hence comes that great agglomeration of people who rush headlong into one another. What happens in a great collective catastrophe? When the people themselves are crushed, where no one falls without dragging another, and the first ones are the ruin of those who follow. You can see happening in every life. No one errs solely on his own account, but he is the cause and author of the error of others. It is harmful, then, to cling to those who go ahead. And as everyone prefers to believe rather than to judge, one never judges about life. One always believes. And the error that passes from hand to hand disturbs and ruins us. We perish through the example of others. We will save ourselves if we separate from the crowd. But now, people confront reason in defense of their wrong, and the same thing happens as in the elections, in which the very people who have named the praetors are amazed that they have been named, once the fickle favor has changed. We approve and condemn the same things. This is the result of every judgment that is decided by the vote of the majority. Chapter 2. Reason and Opinion. When it comes to the happy life, it is not proper for you to answer me, according to the custom of separating votes. This side seems to be the majority. For that very reason, it is the worst. Human affairs do not proceed so well that the best things please the most people. The multitude is the proof of what is worse. Let us seek what is best, not what is most customary and what puts us in possession of eternal happiness. Not what the common crowd approves, which is the worst interpreter of truth. And I call the common crowd both those who wear the military cloak and those who wear crowns. For I do not look at the color of the robes with which bodies are adorned. I do not rely on the eyes to know the person. I have a better and surer light to discern the true and the false. The good of the Spirit must find it. If the Spirit ever had an opportunity to breathe and enter into itself, oh, how it would torture itself. It would confess the truth and say, "Everything I have done until now, I would prefer had not been done." When I think of everything I have said, I envy the mute. Everything I have desired, I judge it to be a curse upon my enemies. Everything I have feared, just gods, how much better it was than what I have desired. I have become estranged from many, and from hatred I have returned to friendship, if indeed there is any friendship among the bad. Yet I am not a friend to myself. I have made the greatest efforts to stand out from the crowd and to be noticed for some quality. What have I done but offer myself as a target and show malevolence where it could bite me? Do you see those who praise eloquence, who escort wealth, who flatter favor, who extol power? All are enemies, or, which is the same, they can be so. There are as many admirers as there are envious people. Why not seek instead something genuinely good, to feel it, not to show it? Those things that are contemplated, before which people stop, which one points out to another with astonishment. They shine on the outside, but inside they are deplorable. Chapter 3. True happiness. Let us seek something good, not in appearance, but solid and durable and more beautiful for its hidden parts. Let us discover it. It is not far away. It will be found. We only need to know where to reach out. But we pass, as in darkness, next to the things, stumbling over the very things we desire. But so as not to make you go in circles, I will skip the opinions of others, as it would take a long time to list and refute them. Hear ours. When I say ours, I do not cling to any one of the Stoic masters. I too have the right to an opinion. Therefore, I will follow one. I will ask another to divide his thesis. Perhaps, after citing them all, I will reject nothing of what the preceding ones decided, and I will say, I am also of this opinion. For the moment, in agreement on this with all the Stoics, I adhere to the nature of things. Wisdom consists in not deviating from it and forming oneself according to its law and example. The happy life is, therefore, the one that is in accordance with its nature. This can only happen if, first, the soul is sound and in constant possession of its health. Secondly, if it is energetic and ardent, magnanimous and patient, adaptable to circumstances, careful without anxiety of its body and what belongs to it, attentive to the other things that serve life without admiring any of them, if it uses the gifts of fortune without being a slave to them. You understand, even if I did not add it, that from this arises a constant tranquility and freedom, once the things that irritate or frighten us are removed. For instead of the pleasures and those meager and fragile joys, harmful even in their very disorder, a great, unbreakable, and constant joy comes to us, and at the same time, the peace and harmony of the soul, and magnanimity with gentleness, for all ferocity proceeds from weakness. Chapter 4. Definitions of the Supreme Good. The good, as we conceive it, can also be defined in other ways. That is, it can be understood in the same sense, but not in the same terms. Just as the same army can be spread out on a wider front or concentrated, arrange the center in a curve, arching the wings, or deploy in a straight line. But its strength and its will to fight for the same cause are the same, no matter how it is ordered. In the same way, the definition of the supreme good can be broadened, or else reduced and folded back. It will be the same, therefore, if I say, The supreme good is a soul that despises chance happenings and takes pleasure in virtue. Or else, an invincible strength of spirit, experienced in things, serene in action, full of humanity and solicitude for those around us. It can also be defined by saying that the happy person is the one for whom nothing is good or bad, but a good or bad soul. A soul that practices the good, that is content with virtue, that is neither elevated nor cast down by fortune. One who knows no greater good than the one they can give to themselves, and for whom the true pleasure will be the contempt of pleasures. You can, if you like digressions, present the same thing in one aspect or another, without altering its meaning. What prevents us, in fact, from saying that the happiness of life consists in a soul that is free, elevated, intrepid, and constant, a soul inaccessible to fear and greed, for whom the only good is virtue, the only evil is vileness, and everything else is a pile of worthless things, which neither take away nor add anything to the happiness of life, since they come and go without increasing or diminishing the supreme good. To this principle, so founded, a constant joy and a deep pleasure that comes from within must necessarily follow, whether it wants to or not. For it rejoices in its own things and desires no greater goods than its private ones. Why should these things not adequately compensate for the meager, frivolous, and inconstant movements of our weak body? The day that pleasure dominates the body, pain will also dominate it. Chapter 5. The Freedom of the Wise Man. You see, then, what an evil and fatal servitude that person will have to suffer, who will be alternately possessed by pleasures and pains, the most capricious and rapturous dominions. One must find a way out toward liberty. This freedom is given only by indifference to fortune. Then will arise that invaluable good, the calm of the spirit placed in safety and elevation. And having cast off all terrors, from the knowledge of truth will emerge a great and immutable joy, and the affability and outpouring of the soul, with which one will delight, not as goods, but as fruits of one's own good. Since I have begun to treat the question broadly, happy can be called the one who, thanks to reason, neither desires nor fears. For stones also lack fear and sadness, and likewise animals, but no one therefore says that those who are not conscious of happiness are happy. Put in the same place those men whom an obtuse nature and ignorance of themselves reduce to the number of animals and inanimate things. There is no difference between these and those, for the latter lack reason, and the reason of the former is corrupted, and only serves for their evil and to pervert them. For no one can be called happy outside of the truth. The happy life has, therefore, its immutable foundation in a right and secure judgment. For the soul is pure and free from all evil when it has avoided not only the tears, but also the scratches, ready to remain always where it has stopped and to defend its position against the furies and onslaughts of fortune. For, regarding pleasure, even if it spreads everywhere around us and insinuates itself through all paths and flatters the mind with its caresses and accumulates them one after another to seduce us totally or partially, what mortal, to whom any vestige of being human remains, would want to feel its tickle day and night and abandon the soul to consecrate oneself to the body? Chapter 6. Pleasure and Happiness. But the soul, it is said, will also have its pleasures. Let it have them in good time, and let it set itself up as the judge of sensuality and pleasures. Let it fill itself with all the things that usually enchant the senses. Afterward, let it turn its eyes to the past, and, upon remembering past pleasures, let it become intoxicated with the former and already anticipate future ones. Let it prepare its hopes, and while the body abandons itself to present feasts, let the thought be set on the future. All the more wretched will he seem to me for it. since to mistake the bad for the good is madness, and no one is happy without sanity. Nor is he sane who desires harmful things as if they were the best. Happy, therefore, is the one who has a right judgment. Happy is the one who is content with present circumstances, whatever they may be, and is a friend of what he has. Happy is the one for whom reason is what gives value to all things in his life. The very people who said that the supreme good is pleasure see what a bad place they had put it in. Therefore, they deny that pleasure can be separated from virtue, and they say that no one can live honestly without joy, nor joyfully without also living with honesty. I do not see how these things so diverse can be reconciled. Why, tell me, can pleasure not be separated from virtue? Doubtless because the beginning of goods always resides in virtue, and the things you love and crave also arise from its roots. But if they were inseparable, we would not see some things that are pleasant but not honest, and others, on the other hand, very virtuous but ungratifying, and which must be accomplished amid pains. Chapter 7. Opposition of Virtue and Pleasure. Add now that pleasure comes even to the most infamous life, but that virtue does not admit a bad life. And some are unhappy not for lack of pleasure, but because of pleasure itself. This would not happen if delight were mixed with virtue, a delight which virtue often lacks, but which it never needs. Why try to unite things so distinct and even contrary? Virtue is something elevated, sublime, and regal, invincible and tireless. Pleasure is something base, servile, weak, and miserable, whose seat and dwelling are brothels and taverns. You will find virtue in the temple, in the forum, tanned with calloused hands; pleasure, almost always hidden in search of shadows, near baths and steam rooms and places that fear the police, is soft, without cold, damp with wine and perfumes, pale and covered with makeup and full of ointments like a corpse. The supreme good is immortal. It cannot disappear and knows neither weariness nor repentance. For an upright soul never changes, nor detests itself, nor alters anything, because it has always followed what is best. But pleasure, on the other hand, the more it delights, the more it is extinguished, and it does not have much space, so it soon fills it, and produces weariness, and withers after the first transports. And that whose nature consists in movement is never secure. Thus, what arrives and passes in the most fleeting manner cannot have any consistency, for it reaches the point where it ceases, and when it begins, it already sees its end. Chapter 8. Living according to nature. What does it matter that pleasure occurs both among the good and among the bad, and that the infamous are no less delighted by their dishonor than the virtuous by their merit? For this reason, the ancients recommended following the better life, not the more agreeable one. Thus, pleasure should not be the guide, but the companion of the straight and good will, for it is nature that must guide us. Reason observes and consults it. It is the same thing, therefore, to live happily or to live according to nature. I will explain what this means. If we preserve our bodily gifts and natural aptitudes carefully and without fear, as fleeting goods given for a day, if we do not suffer their servitude and are not dominated by external things, if the accidental pleasures of the body have the same place for us as auxiliaries and light troops in a campaign, they must serve, not command. Only thus are they useful to the soul. The person should not let themselves be corrupted or dominated by external things and should only admire themselves. They should trust in their spirit and be prepared for any fortune, becoming the architect of their own life. Their confidence should not lack knowledge, nor their knowledge constancy. Their decisions should be forever, and their decrees should have no amendment. It is understood. without me needing to add it, that such a person will be serene and orderly, and will do everything with greatness and affability. True reason will be inserted into the senses and will take its starting point there, for it has nothing else to rely on to launch itself toward the truth and return to itself. And also, the world that encompasses all things. God, the ruler of the universe, tends toward exterior things, yet nevertheless fully returns to itself from all sides. Let our mind do the same. When it has followed its senses and extended itself through them to external things, let it be the master of these and of itself. In this way, a unity of strength and power will result in agreement with itself, and that secure reason will be born, without discrepancy or hesitation in its opinions and understandings, nor in its conviction, which, when it has been ordered and agreed upon and, so to speak, harmonized in its parts, has reached the supreme good. For nothing evil or insecure subsists, nothing over which it can stumble or slip. It will do everything by its own authority, and nothing unforeseen will happen to it. Rather, everything it does will turn out well, easily, and skillfully, without detours in action. For laziness and hesitation accuse struggle and inconstancy. Therefore, you can resolutely declare that the supreme good is the concord of the soul. For the virtues must be where harmony and unity are. It is the vices that disagree. Chapter 9. Supervening Pleasure. But you yourself, it is said, only practice virtue because you expect some pleasure from it. In the first place, if virtue is to provide pleasure, it is not sought for that pleasure, for it provides it only as an addition and does not strive to achieve it. Rather, its effort, although directed towards something else, will also achieve it. Just as in a field plowed for sowing, some flowers sprout here and there, but so much work has not been taken for these small herbs, although they delight the eyes. The purpose of the sower was different, and this came as a side effect. Likewise, pleasure is not the payment or the cause of virtue, but something accessory. And it is not accepted because it delights, but if it is accepted, it also delights. The supreme good resides in the very judgment and in the disposition of a perfect spirit. When this has filled its entire scope and has confined itself to its limits, the supreme good has been realized and desires nothing more. For there is nothing outside the whole, nor beyond the end. That is why you err when you ask what is that for which I seek virtue. For you seek something above the highest. Do you ask what I seek in virtue? Itself, for it has nothing better, and it is its own reward. Or is this a small thing? When I tell you, the supreme good is the firmness and foresight and sharpness and sanity and freedom and harmony, and composure of an unwavering soul, are you still going to demand something greater to which all these things refer? Why do you speak to me of pleasure? I seek the good of man, not that of the belly which beasts and wild animals have in greater measure. Chapter 10. The attitude towards pleasure. You distort what I say, will be replied. I deny that anyone can live pleasantly unless they also live virtuously. This cannot happen to dumb animals, nor to those who measure the good by food. I clearly and openly declare that the life I call pleasant cannot exist without the company of virtue. But who is unaware that even the most stupid are saturated with your pleasures, that wickedness abounds in joys, and that the soul not only suggests vicious pleasures, but many others? In the first place, insolence and an excessive self-esteem, and a proud swelling that elevates you above others, and the blind, thoughtless attachment to one's own things. Soft delights, and transports for minimal and childish causes. Furthermore, causticity and the arrogance that delights in insults, the idleness and slackness of an indolent soul that sleeps on itself. All these things virtue dissipates. It alerts us and assesses pleasures before accepting them. If it approves some, it does not value them highly, for it merely accepts them, and does not enjoy their use, but their temperance. But temperance, which diminishes pleasures, is an attack on the supreme good. You embrace pleasure, I restrain it. You enjoy pleasure, I use it. You consider it the supreme good, I do not even consider it a good. You do everything for pleasure, I do nothing. Chapter 11. Impotence of Epicurean Wisdom. When I say that I do nothing for pleasure, I speak of the true wise man, whom you alone concede. But I do not call wise the one who has something above himself, and all the more so if it is pleasure. For, dominated by it, how will he face work and danger, poverty, and so many threats that roar around human life? How will he endure the sight of death and pain, the clamor of the world and so many bitter enemies, conquered by such a soft adversary? Everything that pleasure advises him, he will do. And do you not see how many things it will advise him? Nothing shameful, you say, will it advise him because it is associated with virtue. Do you not see, once again, what kind of supreme good that is, which needs a guardian to be good? And how will virtue direct pleasure, whom it follows, since following is characteristic of the one who obeys and directing of the one who commands? You put the commander behind. What a magnificent role virtue has among you, to sample pleasures. But we shall see if virtue, among those who treat it so shamefully, still remains virtue, for it cannot be called such if it yields its place. Meanwhile, I will show, which is the point, many who are besieged by pleasures upon whom fortune has poured all her gifts, and whom you will have to recognize as wicked. Look at Nomentanus and Apicius in search of the goods, as they call them, of the earth and the sea, and who acknowledge at their table the animals of all countries. Look at them on their bed of roses, awaiting their feast, delighting their ears with the sound of voices, their eyes with spectacles, their palate with flavors. Their whole body is excited with soft and gentle rubbings, and so that the nose does not rest in the meantime, the very place where offerings are made to sensuality is impregnated with various odors. You will recognize that these are amidst pleasures, yet they will not fare well, because it is not the good that they enjoy. Chapter 12. The Danger of Epicureanism. They will fare badly, you say, because many circumstances intervene that disturb their spirit, and contrary opinions will worry their mind. I grant that this is so, but nevertheless those very foolish, capricious people exposed to the threat of repentance experience great pleasures. So it is necessary to confess that they are as far from all annoyance as they are from good sense. And as happens to many, they have a cheerful madness and go crazy amidst laughter. On the contrary, the pleasures of the wise are peaceful and moderate, perhaps weak, concentrated, and barely visible. For they come without being called, and when they arrive spontaneously, they are not received with honors or with any joy by those who experience them. For they are mixed into life like play and diversion among serious things. Let us, then, cease uniting incompatible things and linking pleasure with virtue, a vice with which the worst are flattered. The person immersed in pleasures, always satiated and drunk, knowing that they live with pleasure, believes they also live with virtue. For they hear that pleasure cannot be separated from virtue, and then they give their vices the name of wisdom and flaunt what they ought to hide. Thus, they do not surrender to sensuality driven by Epicurus, but being given to vice, they hide their corruption in the bosom of philosophy, and they go where they hear pleasure praised. And they do not consider how sober and dry the pleasure of Epicurus is, at least so I understand it. Instead, they rush toward that name. seeking an authority and some veil for their excesses, and so they lose the only good they had among their evils, the shame of sin. For they praise that of which they were ashamed, and they become conceited about their vice. For this reason, it is not even possible for youth to reform, since an honorable title is applied to a shameful indolence. This is the reason why that praise of pleasure is pernicious. The virtuous precepts remain hidden. What corrupts is manifest. Chapter 13. The true meaning of Epicurus's doctrine. I myself am of the opinion, I will say it despite our partisans, that the precepts of Epicurus are venerable, correct, and, if you look closer, austere. For he reduces pleasure to something meager and small, and the law that we assign to virtue, he assigns to pleasure. He orders it to obey the law of nature. But what is sufficient for nature is too little for sensuality. But what happens? The one who calls lazy leisure and the alternating joys of gluttony and lust happiness seeks a good support for a bad cause. And while he comes, induced by that seductive name, he follows pleasure, not the one they teach him, but the one he brought with him. And once he begins to judge his vices similar to the precepts, he gives in to them, but no longer timidly and secretly. He surrenders to sensuality openly, shamelessly. For this reason, I will not say, like most of ours, that the school of Epicurus is a teacher of infamy, but I say it has a bad reputation, it has a bad name, and it does not deserve it. Who can know this if they have not been admitted inside? Its very facade gives rise to gossip and arouses unhealthy hopes. It is like an energetic man dressed as a woman. Your modesty is constant, your manliness is intact. Your body does not yield to any shameful weakness, but you have a drum in your hand. Therefore, let an honorable title and an example be chosen that itself incites the soul to reject the vices that weaken it as soon as they arrive. The one who approaches virtue gives proof of a noble character. The one who follows pleasure seems weak, broken, less of a man, prone to falling into follies. This is unless someone has distinguished the pleasures for him, so that he knows which of them are within natural desire, which lead to the abyss and are unlimited, and the more they are satisfied, the more insatiable they become. Let virtue go ahead then. Following its footsteps, we will always be safe. And excessive pleasure harms. In virtue, there is no need to fear excess because measure is in it itself. That which suffers by its own magnitude is not good. Chapter 14. The Risk of Pleasure. Furthermore, for those endowed with a rational nature, what better thing can be proposed than reason? And if that union is desired, if one wants to go to happiness in company, let virtue march ahead and pleasure accompany it and go alongside it, like the shadow next to the body. To make virtue, the most excellent of all goods, a slave of pleasure, is characteristic of a person incapable of conceiving anything great. Let virtue go first. Let it carry the standard. We will not have less pleasure because of it, but we will be masters and moderators of it. It will make us yield somewhat to its pleas, but it will not impose anything on us. But those who have handed over the command to pleasure lack both, for they lose virtue, and besides they do not possess pleasure, but pleasure possesses them. Either they are tormented by its lack or they are drowned in its abundance. Wretched if it abandons them, more wretched if it overwhelms them. Just as sailors caught in the Syrtis Sea are stranded as soon as they are tossed by impetuous waves. This happens because of excessive intemperance and a blind love for its object. For one who seeks evil instead of good, it is dangerous to attain it. Just as we hunt wild beasts with effort and danger, and their possession, once caught, is also restless, since they often tear apart their owners. In the same way, those who possess great pleasures fall into a great evil, and the things previously conquered capture them. And the more numerous and greater they are, the smaller and more a slave of more masters is the one whom the common crowd calls happy. I want to insist on this image again. The one who seeks the dens of wild beasts and greatly enjoys catching them with a snare and surrounding the vast forests with dogs, abandons preferable occupations to follow their tracks, and gives up many duties. Likewise, the one who pursues pleasure postpones all things to it, and the first thing he neglects is his freedom, which he sacrifices for the belly. And he does not buy pleasures for himself, but sells himself to pleasures. Chapter 15. To obey God is freedom. But, it will be said, what prevents merging virtue and pleasure into one, and establishing the supreme good so that the same thing is both honest and pleasant? It is that there cannot be a part of the virtuous that is not something virtuous, and the supreme good will not have its purity if it encloses something other than the best. Not even the joy that arises from virtue, although it is a good, is a part of the absolute good. No more so than joy and tranquility, although they arise from the most excellent causes. For these things are goods, but they are consequences and not complements of the supreme good. The one who establishes an alliance between pleasure and virtue, even without putting them on an equal footing, weakens all the vigor in the other by the fragility of one of the goods. And he puts under a yoke that freedom which is only invincible if it knows nothing more precious than itself. For, and this is the greatest servitude, it begins to need fortune. An anxious, suspicious, restless life follows from this, fearful of vicissitudes, dependent on the moments of time. You do not give virtue a grave, immutable foundation, but you order it to remain in a movable place. For what is as changeable as the waiting for fortuitous things, and the variation of the body, and the things that affect it? How can one obey God and accept with good cheer everything that happens, not complain about destiny, and welcome its vicissitudes willingly, if one is agitated by the slightest pricks of pleasures and pains? Nor is he a good defender or savior of the homeland, nor a protector of his friends, if he is inclined to pleasures. Let the supreme good rise to a place from where no force can drag it, where pain, hope, fear, or any other thing that diminishes the rights of the supreme good cannot access, but only virtue can rise up to there. Its step is what must dominate that slope. It will remain firm and will endure all events, not only patiently, but voluntarily. And it will know that all the difficulty of the times is a law of nature. And like a good soldier, it will bear its wounds, count the scars, and, dying pierced by darts, it will love the leader for whom it falls. It will always have in its mind the old precept: follow God. In contrast, the one who complains, cries, and groans is forced to do what is commanded, and is no less unwillingly led to where he is ordered. What madness it is to prefer being dragged to following, as much by my faith as, through foolishness and ignorance of one's own condition, to grieve because something is missing, or something painful happens to you. Or, likewise, to be surprised or indignant at the things that happen as much to the good as to the wicked. I mean illnesses, deaths, impediments, and the other miseries that happen unexpectedly to human life. Let us accept with good cheer everything that must be suffered by the constitution of the universe. We are subject to the obligation to endure the conditions of mortal life and not be disturbed by what is not in our power to avoid. We were born into a kingdom. To obey God is freedom. Chapter 16. The happiness of the wise man. Therefore, true happiness resides in virtue. What will this virtue advise you? that you do not estimate as good or bad what happens neither through virtue nor through malice. Secondly, that you be immovable even against the evil that proceeds from the good, so that, as far as is lawful, you make yourself a god. What does this endeavor promise you? Great privileges, and equal to the divine. You will be forced to nothing. You will need nothing. You will be free, secure, unharmed. You will attempt nothing in vain. Nothing will impede you. Everything will proceed according to your desire. Nothing adverse will happen to you. Nothing contrary to your opinion or your will. So then, is virtue enough to live happily? Being perfect and divine, why should it not be enough? It is even more than enough. For what can be missing for the one who is exempt from all desire? What does the one who has gathered all their things within themselves need from the outside? But the one who tends toward virtue, even if they have advanced a lot, still needs some favor from fortune, while they still struggle amidst human anxieties, while they untie that knot and all mortal bonds. What is the difference then? That some are tied, others are shackled, others are even chained up. The one who has reached a superior region and has risen to a greater height drags a loose chain, not yet free, but already almost free. Chapter 17. Principles and Conduct. But one of those who bark against philosophy will say, as they usually do, "Why do you speak with more energy than you live? Why do you lower your tone before a superior, and consider money a necessary instrument for you, and get upset by a setback, and cry when you hear of the death of your wife or a friend, and care about your reputation, and are affected by malicious gossip? Why is your field more cultivated than natural use demands? Why do you not dine according to your precepts? Why do you have overly elegant furniture? Why is there wine in your house older than you? Why is an aviary installed? Why are trees planted that will only give shade? Why does your wife wear the rent of an opulent house in her ears? Why are your slaves dressed in precious clothes? Why is serving the table an art in your house, and the silver is not placed randomly and carelessly, but is served with expertise, and you have a master of the carving art? Add still if you wish. Why do you have possessions beyond the sea? And more than you know? It is a shame that you are so negligent as not to know a few slaves, or so lavish as to have more than memory can account for. I will immediately aid your reproaches and raise more objections than you imagine. Now I will answer you this. I am not a wise man, and for your malevolence to rejoice, I never will be. For this reason, I do not demand of myself to be equal to the best, but better than the wicked. It is enough for me to prune something from my vices every day and punish my excesses. I have not reached health, nor will I even reach it. I compose more palliatives than remedies for my gout, content if the attacks are less frequent and less painful. But, compared to your feat, I, being impotent, am a runner. Chapter 18. Malevolence respects no one. I do not say these things for myself, for I am immersed in all vices, but for one who has already achieved something. You speak in one way, it is said, you live in another. This reproach, you heads full of malevolence and hostility toward all the best, has been made to Plato, it has been made to Epicurus, it has been made to Zeno. For all these people spoke, not as they themselves lived, but how they ought to have lived. I speak of virtue, not of myself, and when I rail against vices, I do so against my own first. When I can, I will live as I should, and that malignity soaked in poison will not separate me from the best. Not even that poison with which you sprinkle others and kill yourselves will prevent me from persevering in praising, not the life I lead, but the one I know ought to be led. and to adore virtue and follow it trailing from a great distance. For am I going to expect that there will be anything respectable for malevolence, for whom neither Rutilius nor Cato were sacred? Will anyone worry if he seems too rich to those people for whom Demetrius the Cynic is not poor enough? A man extremely energetic, who fights against every natural desire, poorer than the other cynics, because they have forbidden themselves to have anything, and he has also forbidden himself to ask. They deny that he is poor enough, and note, he has not professed the science of virtue, but that of poverty. Chapter 19. Envy, the source of slander. They deny that Diodorus, the Epicurean philosopher, who a few days ago ended his life by his own hand, acted according to the concepts of Epicurus by cutting his throat. Some want to see madness in that action of his, others thoughtlessness. He, however, happy and with a satisfied conscience, gave testimony of himself as he left this life and praised the tranquility of his days spent in port and anchored, and said this, which you have heard unwillingly, as if you also had to do it. I have lived and I have traveled the path that fortune had marked for me. You argue about the life of one, the death of another, and upon hearing the name of great men by some egregious merit, you bark like little dogs when encountering unknown people. For it suits you that no one seems good, as if the virtue of others were the reproach of your crimes. You enviously compare splendid things with your own sordidness, and you do not understand how much that audacity is to your detriment. For if those who follow virtue are greedy, lustful, and ambitious, what are you, who hate even the very name of virtue? You deny that anyone complies with what they say, or lives according to the model of their words. What is strange about that, since they say things that are energetic, great, that surpass all human tempests, since they strive to tear themselves away from those crosses on which each of you sinks your own nails. But those condemned to torment are suspended each on a single post. Those who torment themselves are stretched out by as many crosses as desires. And slanderers, they are ingenious at insulting others. I would therefore believe that they are exempt from those evils, if it were not that some spit from the scaffold at the spectators. Chapter 20. The value of philosophical effort. Do the philosophers not fulfill what they say? But they already do much by saying it, by conceiving virtue in their thought. For if their deeds were equal to their words, who would be happier than they? First of all, good words and hearts of good thoughts should not be despised. The cultivation of healthy studies, even apart from its result, is laudable. Is it strange that those who climb steep slopes do not reach the summit? But if you are a man, admire, even if they fall, those who strive to reach great things. For it is a generous undertaking to aspire to elevated things, to attempt it, looking not at one's own strength, but at the strength of one's nature, and to conceive plans greater than those that can be realized, even when endowed with a great spirit. The one who has proposed this. I will look at death with the same face with which I hear talk of it. I will submit to labors, however great, sustaining the body with the spirit. I will equally despise present and absent riches, and will not be sadder if they are elsewhere, nor more spirited if they shine around me. I will not be sensitive to fortune, neither when it arrives nor when it departs. I will look at all lands as mine, and mine as belonging to all. I will live as one who knows that he was born for others, and I will give thanks for it to the nature of things, for how could I better arrange my affairs? It is given me alone for all, and all for me alone. Whatever I have, I will neither guard it with avarice nor waste it lavishly. I will believe I possess nothing better than what I have given well. I will not measure benefits by their number or by their weight, nor by any estimation other than that of the one who receives them. What a worthy man receives will never be too much for me. I will do nothing for opinion, everything for conscience. I will believe I am acting in the eyes of the public, even that of which I alone am a witness. When eating and drinking, my purpose will be to satisfy natural desires, not to fill the belly and empty it. Affable to my friends, I will yield before they beg me and will anticipate honest requests. I will know that my homeland is the world, and that the gods preside over it, and these are above me and around me, as censors of my deeds and my words. And when nature claims my spirit or my reason dismisses it, I will leave with the testimony of having loved a right conscience and good inclinations, without having diminished anyone's freedom, least of all my own. The one who proposes, wants, and tries to do this will approach the gods. And even if he has not achieved it, he has fallen, nevertheless, after having dared great things. Chapter 21. The Preferences of the Wise Man. You, in hating virtue and the one who practices it, do nothing new. For even diseased eyes fear the sun, and nocturnal animals flee the splendor of day, and at its first light they are dazzled and seek their hiding places everywhere. They hide in some crack, fearful of the light, groan, and move your fatal tongue to insult the good. Open your mouth, bite. You will break your teeth long before you leave any mark. Why is that person a follower of philosophy and yet lives with so much opulence? Why does he say that riches must be despised, and yet he possesses them? Does he consider life despicable, and yet he lives? Health despicable, and yet he takes care of it with every detail and prefers it to be excellent? And he judges exile a vain name and says, "For what evil is there in changing countries?" And yet if he can, he grows old in his homeland. And he thinks there is no difference between a longer or shorter time. But if nothing prevents him, he prolongs his existence and likes to be flourishing in extreme old age. He says that these things must be despised, not that they should not be held, but that they should not be held with eagerness. He does not reject them, but when they leave, he follows them with a calm gaze. Where will fortune place riches more securely than where it can recover them without protest from the one who returns them? Marcus Cato, when he praised Curius and Coruncanius, and that century in which it was a crime for the censors to have a few silver plates, possessed 4,000,000 sesterces, less, no doubt, than Croesus, but more than Cato the censor. If compared, he surpassed his great-grandfather by a greater distance than he was surpassed by Crassus. And if more riches had fallen to his lot, he would not have scorned them. For the wise man does not consider himself unworthy of any gift of fortune. He does not love riches, but he prefers them. He does not receive them into his soul, but into his house. And he does not reject the one who possesses them, but he dominates them, and wants them to provide a wider scope for virtue. Chapter 22. The Role of Preferable Things. For who doubts that the wise man has a wider scope to develop his spirit amidst riches than in poverty? In poverty, there's only one kind of virtue, not to be cast down or depressed. In riches, temperance, generosity, discernment, organization, and magnificence have open ground. The wise man will not despise himself, even if he is of the smallest stature, but he will prefer to be tall. And if he is weak of body or has one eye less, he will be fine, although he will prefer to enjoy physical robustness. And he will know that there is something more vigorous in him. He will endure bad health. He will desire good health. For some things, although they are of little importance to the whole and can be taken away without destroying the main good, they still add something to the constant joy that arises from virtue. Thus, riches move and cheer him as a favorable and propitious wind does a sailor, or good day and a sunny place in the cold of winter. And on the other hand, which of the wise I speak of ours, for whom the only good is virtue, denies that the things we call indifferent also have some value in themselves, and that some are preferable to others? To some of them some honor is given, to others much, and one must not be deceived. Among the preferable things are riches. Why then, you will say, do you mock me, if they have the same place for you as for me? Do you want to know to what extent they do not have the same place? For me, riches, if lost, will take nothing more than themselves from me. You will be stunned, and it will seem to you that you are abandoned by yourself if they depart from you. In me, riches have some place, in you, the highest. In short, the riches are mine. You belong to the riches. Chapter 23. The Use of Riches. Stop, therefore, forbidding money to philosophers. No one has condemned wisdom to be poor. The philosopher will have great riches, but not snatched from anyone or stained with the blood of others. Acquired without prejudice to anyone, without dirty business, and leaving as honorably as they entered, of which only the malevolent complain. Accumulate as much as you want. They are honorable. Although there are many things among them that everyone would like to call their own, there is nothing that anyone can say is theirs. But the wise man will not reject the favors of fortune, and will neither be arrogant nor ashamed of the patrimony acquired by honest means. He can even boast if, after opening his house and receiving the whole city into it, he could say, "What each one recognizes as their own, let them take it." Great man, excellent rich man, if he had the same after these words. I mean, if he lends himself securely and tranquilly to the people's investigation. If no one finds anything in his house to lay hands on, he can be rich frankly and openly. The wise man will not allow any ill-gotten coin to cross his threshold, but he will not reject or discard great riches, the gift of fortune and the fruit of virtue. For what reason would he deny them a good place? Let them come and be sheltered. He will neither display them nor hide them. The former is characteristic of a foolish spirit, the latter of a timid and pusillanimous man, as if hiding a great good in his bosom. Nor, as I have said, will he throw them out of his house. For what? Will he tell them, "You are useless," or "I do not know how to use riches"? Just as, although he could travel on foot, he will nevertheless prefer to ride in a carriage, so, being poor, if he can be rich, he will want to, and thus he will have riches, but as a light and fleeting thing, and he will not tolerate them being burdensome neither for others nor for himself. He will give. Why do you prick up your ears? Why do you stretch out your purse? He will give to the good, or to those he can make good. He will give with great prudence, choosing the most worthy, as one who remembers that an account must be given both of expenses and income. He will give for right and justified reasons, for a misplaced gift is counted among the vicious wastes. He will have a handy purse, but not one with holes, from which many things come out, and nothing falls out. Chapter 24. The Art of Giving. He errs who believes that giving is an easy thing. This matter has great difficulty if one gives with discernment and does not squander haphazardly and rashly. I obligate this one. I return to that one. I help this one. I pity that one. I provide for that one, worthy of not being conquered by poverty or kept dominated by it. I will not give to some, even if they lack it, because even if I had given to them, they will still lack it. To some I will offer, to others I will even urge. I cannot be negligent in this matter. I never make better investments than when I give. For what, you will say, do you give to receive? No, so as not to lose. Let the donation be placed in a place where it should not be claimed but can be returned. Let the benefit be placed like a treasure buried deeply, which you will not unearth unless it is necessary. And the very house of the rich man, how much material it offers for doing good. For who limits generosity only to those who wear a toga? Nature orders me to be useful to men, whether they are slaves or free, of free parents or freedmen, of legal freedom or given among friends. What does it matter? Wherever there is a man, there is a place for a benefit. It is possible, therefore, to distribute money even without crossing one's own threshold, and to exercise liberality, which is not called so because it is due to the free, but because it proceeds from a free soul. In the wise man, it never falls upon vicious or unworthy people, and never wanders so tired that it does not pour out abundantly whenever it finds someone worthy. Therefore, the virtuous, energetic, courageous things that the friends of wisdom say should not be misunderstood. And above all, notice this: a friend of wisdom is one thing, and one who has already attained it is another. The former will tell you, I speak very well, but I am still agitated among many evils. You should not judge me according to my formula, for at most I am making myself, I am forming myself, and I am rising toward a magnificent model. If I manage to advance as much as I have proposed, demand that the actions correspond to the words. But the one who has reached the summit of human power will behave with you differently, and will say, in the first place, you cannot allow yourself to judge concerning the best. It already happens to me, and it is proof of my rectitude that I displease the wicked. But to explain to you the reason why I envy no mortal, listen to what I am going to say and how much I estimate each thing. I deny that riches are a good, for if they were, they would make men good. Now, since what is found among the wicked cannot be called a good, I deny them that name. Moreover, I grant that they must be possessed, that they are useful and provide great comforts to life. Chapter 25. The Attachment to Riches. So, what then? Hear why I do not count them among the goods, and in what way my attitude toward them differs from yours, since we both agree that they should be possessed. Place me in the most opulent house. Place me where they profusely use gold and silver. I will not be astonished by these things which, even if they are in my house, are nevertheless outside of me. Move me to the Sublician Bridge and throw me among the destitute. I will not despise myself for being seated among the multitude of those who hold out their hand, asking for alms. For what does it matter that a piece of bread is missing for one who does not lack the possibility of dying? In short, I prefer that splendid house to the bridge. Place me in the midst of sumptuous furniture and refined luxury. I will not believe myself in any way happier for having a soft cloak, for spreading purple tapestries at my feasts. I will be in no way more miserable if my tired neck rests on a handful of hay, if I lie down on circus horsehair that sticks out through the patches of an old cloth. What does this mean? I prefer to show the soul I have, dressed in the toga praetexta and well covered, rather than with bare or half-covered shoulders. Let all my days pass according to my desires. Let new congratulations be added to the previous ones. I will not be pleased by it. Change these favors of time into adversity. Let the spirit be harassed on all sides with losses, mourning, various attacks. Let not a single hour be without cause for complaint. I will not for that curse any day, for I have taken my measures so that no day is ill-fated for me. So then, I prefer to moderate my joys to repressing my pains. Great Socrates will tell you, make me the conqueror of all nations. Let the voluptuous chariot of Bacchus carry me triumphant from the east to Thebes. Let the kings of the Persians ask me for laws. I will most think that I am a man when I am greeted everywhere as a god. Let a sudden change immediately follow such a sublime elevation. Let me be carried on foreign litters to adorn the procession of a proud and fierce victor. I will be no more humiliated to be driven under someone else's chariot than to stand in my own. So, what then? I prefer to be the victor to being captive. I will despise the whole empire of fortune, but if I am given the choice, I will take the best of it. Everything that happens to me will turn out well, but I prefer the easiest and most pleasant things to happen, and those least bothersome for the one who has to deal with them. For do not believe that there is any virtue without effort, but some virtues need stimuli, others need restraints. Just as the body must be held back on a descent and be pushed uphill, some virtues are on a slope, others at the foot of a hill. Does anyone doubt that patience, fortitude, perseverance, and all the other virtues that oppose adversities and conquer fortune, climb, struggle, and fight? And is it not equally evident that liberality, temperance, and gentleness follow a slope? In the latter, we restrain the soul so that it does not slip. In the former, we exhort it and incite it energetically. Therefore, we will apply the strongest virtues, which know how to fight, to poverty, to riches, the most careful ones, which walk on tiptoe and maintain their balance. Chapter 26. The Fool and the Wise Man. Having made this division, I prefer to practice those virtues that must be exercised more peacefully, rather than those whose exercise requires blood and sweat. Therefore, the wise man says, I do not live in one way and speak in another, but you hear poorly. Only the sound of my words reaches your ears. You do not seek their meaning. For what difference is there between me, the fool, and you, the wise man, if we both want to possess? Very many differences. For the riches of the wise man are in servitude, those of the fool in power. The wise man allows nothing to riches. Riches allow everything to you. You, as if someone had promised you their eternal possession, get used to and cling to them. The wise man thinks about poverty the most when he is in the midst of riches. A general never believes so much in peace that he does not prepare for a war that, even if it is not waged, has been declared. A beautiful thing astounds you, as if it could not burn or sink. An unusual opulence, as if it were above all risk and too great for fortune to have enough strength to consume it. You play indolently with riches, without foreseeing their danger, just as sometimes the besieged barbarians, ignorant of the machines, contemplate the work of the besiegers indifferently, and do not understand what those things being built in the distance are for. The same thing happens to you. You languish among your goods, and you do not think how many misfortunes threaten you everywhere, ready to instantly snatch away precious spoils. If someone snatches his riches from the wise man, he will leave him everything that is his. For he lives content with the present, tranquil about the future. Nothing, Socrates will say, or someone else who has the same authority and the same power over human things. I have promised myself with more firmness than not to bend the acts of my life to your opinions. Accumulate your usual words everywhere. I will not think that you are insulting me, but that you are whimpering like unhappy creatures. This will be said by the one to whom wisdom has been given, whose soul, free from vices, orders him to reprimand others, not because he hates them, but to cure them. And he will add this: your opinion affects me, not for my sake, but for yours. To hate and attack virtue is to renounce the hope of amendment. You do me no injury, just as those who knock down their altars do none to the gods. But the evil purpose and bad intention are manifested even where harm could not be done. Thus, I endure your extravagances. as Jupiter Optimus Maximus endures the foolishness of the poets, of whom one gives him wings, another horns. Another represents him as an adulterer and spending nights out, another cruel to the gods, another unjust to men, another a kidnapper and corrupter of free men, and even of his relatives, another a parasite and usurper of a foreign and paternal kingdom. With all this, no more would have been achieved than to remove from men the shame of sin, if they had believed in such gods. But although these things do not affect me at all, I advise you for your own interest. Admire virtue. Believe those who have followed for a long time and proclaim to follow something great and who manifest their greatness more every day, and venerate it as the gods, and those who profess it as priests, and whenever mention is made of the sacred writings, hold your tongue. This expression does not come, as is usually believed, from favor, but silence is ordered so that the sacrifice can be performed according to the rite, without any untimely voice disturbing it. Chapter 27. The Example of the Philosophers. It is much more necessary to command it to you, so that whenever that oracle utters something, you listen attentively and silently. When someone, shaking the rattle, lies by order, when someone, skillful in cutting their muscles, bloodies their arms and shoulders with an uncertain hand. When another howls, crawling on their knees through the street, and an old man dressed in linen, with a laurel and a lantern in broad daylight, shouts that one of the gods is angry, you rush and listen, and, mutually encouraging your stupor, you affirm that he is inspired. Well then, Socrates, from that prison that he purified upon entering it and made more honorable than any curia, proclaims, "What madness is this? What character hostile to the gods and men is it that defames virtues and profanes holy things with malicious words? If you can, praise the good. If not, go your way. And if you like to exercise that ignoble license, attack one another. For when you rave against heaven, I do not say you commit a sacrilege, but you waste your time. I once gave Aristophanes material for mockery. That whole bunch of comic poets poured their poisoned jokes on me. My virtue was enhanced by the very things with which it was attacked. It is fitting for it to be shown and put to the test. No one understands how great it is better than those who have felt its forces when fighting it. No one knows the hardness of flint better than those who strike it. I show myself as a rock isolated in the middle of a troubled sea, which the waves do not cease to lash, on whatever side they move. Yet they do not move it or wear it down with so many centuries of continuous onslaughts. Assault, attack, I will conquer you by resisting. Everything that strikes against things that are firm and invincible exercises its strength to its own detriment. Therefore, seek some soft and inconsistent material in which your darts may be stuck. Do you have time to inquire into the evils of others and inquire into everyone? Why does this philosopher live with such breadth? Why does that one dine so splendidly? You observe the sores of others, and you are full of ulcers. It is as if someone mocked the spots or warts of very beautiful bodies, while a horrible leprosy devours him. Reproach Plato for having sought money, Aristotle for having received it, Democritus for having neglected it, Epicurus for having consumed it. Reproach me myself for Alcibiades and Phaedrus. You will be very happy the first time you can imitate our vices. Why do you not better contemplate your evils, which riddle you everywhere, some attacking from outside, others burning in your very entrails? Human affairs are not in such a situation, even if you know little of your state, that you have so much leisure as to move your tongue to the detriment of the best. Chapter 28. The Foreseen Threat. You do not understand this, and you have an appearance improper for your situation. Like many who are in the circus or the theater while a misfortune has occurred in their house, and they have not yet been warned of the evil. But I, who look from above, See what storms threaten you, about to break out a little later, or already close, to snatch away you and your goods, approaching ever closer. What do I say? Is it not right now, even if you barely feel it, that the whirlwind agitates and stirs your souls, which shun and seek the same things, and so soon raises them to the highest and so soon drags them to the deepest abysses? Thank you for listening to this audiobook until the end. If you enjoyed the content, we invite you to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. This way, you won't miss our upcoming publications.